empowering the blind to be excellent, do more, and live with greater success. This show is for you and about you. Welcome to the Delivering Access Podcast. Well, welcome back, Delivering Access Podcast listeners. I am simply pleased to welcome my guest, Mrs. Kaye Zimpher. Kaye, are you prepared to empower?
Absolutely.
Great. So we're going to dive right into the interview. So Kaye, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became blind, where you grew up, and some of the tools that you've used along your way.
I was born and raised in Atlanta. I went blind at the age of 6 months old. There was a fever that affected the cortical area of my brain, and it caused the loss of eyesight. And I currently work for the government, which I have been for about 8 years. I've been interested in technology for years and years, though. I can remember the first computer I ever used was an Apple IIe in high school, because I'm old. And so, but now I still love technology. I use Braille displays and eye devices and computers and everything. A lot of that's really necessary for my job as well, but it's something I've always been passionate about.
Cool. So, do you work as a spy, or can you say where you work in the government, or?
I'm just I'm an Internal Revenue employee, but no, I'm definitely not a spy.
Oh, the tax lady. Okay.
The apathetic tax collector.
Okay. Well, what's your passion for the blindness community?
Independence. I mean, I think that I was raised to be an independent person. I was raised by a single parent who worked 70 to 80 hours a week, and so I had no choice but to take care of myself. And my mother wanted the best for me. She made sure that I understood that, it was my responsibility to be just as independent as the sighted person next to me. So being able to go where I need to go and do what I need to do, clean the house, cook the food, grocery shop, even the little things that we don't think about that we do every day. Some blind people, unfortunately, are too petrified to do. And so my passion for the blindness community is to make them realize that it's important that we are as independent as possible all the time. It's lovely to have somebody to help us out, and those people that we do have in our lives are godsends and truly blessings, but it's also important for us to be able to do everything that we can do for ourselves.
Okay, so that was pretty much embedded in you from a young child to be independent and to make your own way and to kind of figure that out.
Right.
Okay. So where did you attend school? Were you mainstreamed? Was that available for you then, or?
I'm not that old.
Okay.
Yes, it was available for me. We came out of the caves and out of the dark ages.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
They actually turned the water on, and then yes, I was mainstream.
Okay.
I was basically mainstream for 12 years. In a wonderful school that had running water and real desks.
Okay.
And it was a great experience because I actually learned this. There's pros and cons on both sides of whether you should go to a blind school or not. But I got an excellent education from the Gwinnett County school system.
Okay.
And I was happy to. I was the first blind person in the Gwinnett County school system, and so there were some struggles and trials and tribulations, but we got through them, and I learned how to, through being mainstreamed, I learned how to be a sighted person, because that's all that was there. It was me and them, so I learned how to be a sighted person through that.
So when you were going to school, were you going to school in the time period where they were able to spank the child, or was that already ruled out?
My mother was really weird about that. She used to send notes to school, because I think in the early part of my education they still did that, and she would send notes to school on the first day of every school year that said, "You may not touch my child." She wanted to be the one. If I needed that, it was going to be from her, because I was scared enough of her as it is. So
Okay. But nevertheless, your core curriculum and the expanded core curriculum with Braille and O&M was pretty much all done as a youth, through going through school.
Yes, I didn't have any. I had a person that came in um every day and basically helped with things like math and any problems that I had. I didn't go outside of the school for anything. O&M was done. Well, at first they did it as part of my day.
Mm.
Then they realized that it was taking away from the education part. So they concentrated more on the education and they did an after school thing with the O&M. And then I concentrated more on it when I got out of high school. But they really everything was done within the school system.
Okay, okay, cool. So now, today, what mainstream or assistive technologies are you using to, live life and do your job today?
I have a laptop at home with Windows, and of course I have my computer at work with Windows. I've got an iPhone and an iPad Mini, as well as a Focus 14 Braille display, which I purchased in July. I actually don't know what I ever did without it, but I think in the 5 or 6 months that I've had it, I have definitely gotten my money's worth out of it because everybody said, "Well, why would you want to spend that much money?" I said, "You just don't understand."
Right.
Braille is something that I'm pretty passionate about. People just don't understand how important it is for blind people to be literate because, listening to something is not reading it.
Mm-hmm.
It's great when you want to listen to a book and put it on the Victor and just kind of lay in bed and chill out with a book for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. But reading is Braille. That is what reading is. And so I think that blind people that are Braille literate are going to be ultimately a little bit more successful over time.
Do you think that's going away that's from being taught in the schools or just being used as technology progresses?
They're trying to make it go away, and there are those of us that really don't want to see that happen because from a small child, using Braille was so important. Even little things now. I use my computer for everything, but if somebody wants to, if I want to label a can of soup so that I know that it's Campbell soup instead of tomato sauce, I can put a Braille label on it. That it's just, I can definitely go get my phone and identify that same can. Mm-hmm. But if it's got a Braille label on, I just stick my hand in the pantry and grab what I want, and I'm done. And there's so many different uses for Braille. It's pretty amazing. So they're trying to push it away, but there's a lot of us that really don't want to see that happen.
Yeah. So when you say literate, how does that kind of breaks down for the individual using Braille versus the individual that's using their technology? And the reason why I ask that is they say oftentimes, with technology, you have a spell checker and you can go character by character and all of that. Versus Braille, what would be the main difference?
Well, when I write, and I do enjoy writing a lot, and when I write, I think about how the word looks in my head. And it helps me to be a little bit better speller. We do have spell check, but if you don't know how the word looks on a page, to me, it changes how the word is perceived. And it helps with being a better speller. It helps with math. A student that doesn't know that much about Braille really is going to struggle mathematically because you can only do so much with a computer. The computer can do a lot of math problems for you, but when you have to show your work in school, that's something that's pretty important to high schools these days. Then it's something that you should really be able to write everything out. I do think that being able to read Braille is going to help a person to know sentence structure, know where the punctuation goes, and you can go character by character and word by word. But how long will it take you to do that versus just being able to be familiar with the written word rather, and then be able to translate it either into the spoken word or into something that you've typed out? It's amazing.
Yeah. So what would you say to the individual who went blind later in life? Because what I'm realizing for the most part is that people who were taught Braille as a youth still use it, believe in it, and pretty much swear by it, versus someone maybe who went blind at 27, who knows the sentence structure and have used a computer, and Braille is just this whole new language of doing things.
It's something, it's like learning another language. When I talk to older people that want to learn, and I've actually taught some of them, it's like teaching somebody Spanish.
Mm.
And, it is like learning a new language. But, what I would say to them is you don't realize what you're missing until you don't realize that you would use something this much until you actually have it. So once you learn Braille, you might actually find that you really, really use it and you really, really need it. And you may not sit down and read a whole book,
Mm-hmm.
but if you can be able to label your files, or quickly find something in a restaurant menu, or something that's quick and easy for the newly blinded person, they may not order the magazine in Braille like I would, but they would definitely still benefit from it.
So how fast do you read?
The last time I was tested, it was something like 90 words a minute.
Okay, cool. So let's transition a bit and talk about you personally. How are you striving to invoke change in the blindness community?
I don't know. That's a hard question, because I'm having to make some changes within myself too. So I used to be one of these blind people that, when I got this job with the IRS, I was like, well, I got what I need. I don't know what I had to do for y'all. But then I finally realized that, hey, that's ridiculous. Why? And I wouldn't want somebody to feel that way about me. And I for a long time, I buried myself in my work and didn't attend any organizational meetings and wasn't involved in really anything. I was just trying to get through every day and make as much money as I could. I had some life experiences that changed how I look at a lot of things, and I won't go into all that here, except just to say that I had to hit what they call rock bottom and change my perspective on myself and my life before I could do anything for anybody else. And so now that that's mostly done, I realize that, I can be a role model, because I do work and I do use a lot of technology, and I can try to work with the blind community to try to make positive changes. We need to be out there. Our voices need to be heard. We have to have articulate, educated people to go out there and speak to these legislatures and tell them what we need them to know. And, we need to be taken seriously. And if I can empower somebody, if I can be a role model, sorry, or, and I can learn to talk too. And if I can be a role model to someone else, then I've done what I feel that God has asked me to do.
Yeah. So what's your number one hot button for what's going on in the blindness community? I know we hear the minimum wage act, and transportation issues, and all of this stuff is affecting the blind nationwide. But what's your biggest thing that's just pissing you off?
Probably the minimum wage thing.
Yeah.
Probably, I'd say that's something that, because employment is a big topic for me. I've had a lot of jobs. I've worked somewhere since I was 16, and I know that a lot of us a lot of people can't find work. A lot of people don't find work, and so that's something that people had to figure out within themselves. But the minimum wage thing is important to me, because even the multiply disabled and people that maybe have other things going on besides blindness, I think they deserve $7.25 an hour too.
Yeah.
I don't think that they should be making $3.68 an hour just because they have a couple of other disabilities. Maybe the world doesn't think they have anything to spend that money on, but we don't know that. We can't see inside their hearts and know what their desires are. Maybe they'd like an iPad. Maybe they'd like something that could help them cognitively or something like that. Or maybe they'd like to help their family.
Yeah.
So, they deserve $7.25 an hour too.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely making a profit off of the individuals working there, and it's not a think that they would want these things. It should be a given. Everybody wants something, and it's not like they're in prison where you could pretty much justify it based on them being locked up because they did something wrong. They're working. You saw some value in them, so at least let the value of their hourly wage be par with, you know, everybody else that's working.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I just don't see how paying them minimum wage and maybe cutting some of the executives' paychecks a little bit would hurt. You know, the guy that they interviewed from Goodwill, I think they said he made $725,000 last year. What's he gonna do with all that money? I just don't. I just don't. You know, I don't think that's really when there's people out there. At the NFB convention, they interviewed this lovely couple that worked for Goodwill, and they were making something like $4.68 an hour at the top pay. Really, they had to maintain a household on those funds, and you know, who should be expected to do that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you look at the officers at MARTA, and that's the transit system here in Atlanta. For those listening outside of Atlanta, you know, and the CEO makes upwards of $400,000 a year. You know, and I'm just, you know, like you, wondering not so much of what they could do with the money, but just the fact that, you know, they make that type of money, but yet we have the problems that we do. You know, what are we paying you for? What's the end result for, you know, the amount of money that you get? You know,
Yeah.
could you
And
do that? Go ahead.
Some of that money could be taken. They don't, you know, they're yeah, that's a big hot topic for me. I could talk about MARTA for hours, but yeah, they could reallocate those funds.
Yeah.
You know, what are we getting out of them making so much money?
Absolutely. Well, we have reached my favorite part of the show. That's the thunder moment, and that's why I asked you a series of questions, and you come back with brief and mind-blowing results. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Who was one of the mentors in your life growing up?
Probably my mother.
Your mother. What's the best advice she's given you?
Don't use credit cards. I didn't follow.
I was about to ask you that. Did you follow that?
No.
Of the innovations in technology today, what's exciting you the most?
GPS.
GPS. Wow. Why?
You know, they're coming up with so many different things. I mean, I've read something recently that eventually they're going to come up with things that can help you find your way around inside. You know, like you can get, this is my doctor's office. He's in room 606.
Mm-hmm.
You know, somehow you're going to be able to figure out. I just think that the advances are awesome. The things that we can do, the things we can get to. You can go to an unfamiliar place and actually get there on your own. And I know a young man who actually went for GPS training with his dog. I thought that was pretty wild.
I want to invent a cane with a built-in GPS, and when I get to the door, I want to just be able to press a button and it label that door, so the next time I need to get back to it, you know, it just guides
You're there.
me. Yeah. And I actually was able to test that at one of the VA centers, so I know that, you know, either it will come out or something like it. But I mean, it was just phenomenal the way they had the cane to be able to detect, you know, up to a foot from, you know, where you was trying to get to, and in some cases even closer. So can you imagine, you know, going through the airport and, you know, being able to go to Starbucks without, hey, you know, it's crowded, can you help me?
Right.
Know?
Yeah,
So,
just being able to find things, being able to walk in the mall and say, you know, I want to go to Macy's.
oh yeah.
And just, you know, type in Macy's and have it find it for you or something like that. That's something big and vast, like a mall, like if you go think about the Mall of America up in Minnesota, you know, I can't even imagine trying to find a store in that place by myself.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, even going to Linux, it just irritates the mess out of me trying to, you know, get around and, you know, just knowing what's there, what new shops, or, you know, this shop is now moved, and, all of that. It would be nice to be able to identify those and just, go there. And I mean, it's hard enough once you get to the store to try to get help, so.
I remember going to Linux one day, and I needed to go to the AT&T store for something, and I went to the Apple store and handled my business there, and then I went back to the AT&T store and it was gone. And it took me an hour to find out from someone or figure out from someone that store was no longer in the mall. You had to go across the street. Okay. Yeah. Nobody could tell me that. So it was just, I don't like going in there by myself.
Right. So what advice would you give a person that has just went blind that will help them start to deal with their blindness and overcome a lot of the frustration that you and others have went through?
It doesn't have to be negative. Being blind has so many negative connotations from society. It's a, when people in society are asked which sense would you least like to lose, which one of your senses would you want to never lose, the first thing that they say is their sight. And while it is traumatic and sometimes pretty awful in the beginning for some or for many, I can't think of anybody that it wouldn't be, really. Mm-hmm. It does not have to be negative, and it does not have to define you. You are still who you are. You are still whatever person. If you were a jerk before, you're going to be a jerk once you go blind, and vice versa.
That's almost like being drunk. If you're
right,
yeah. So you get it. Cool. So generally, I talk about the whole roller coaster in life. We got our ups and we have our downs, and you've already stated you're not going to talk too much about the downs, but during the time of your life, and you've been blind for the majority of it, what's your biggest highlight where blindness didn't stop you? It was an afterthought and you just conquered the world.
Oh, gee. I think when I went to get my job, even though it was a blindness related program, I've always been kind of a faithful person. I don't have to talk a lot of religion here, but I'm a believer, and I just felt like I was in the right place at the right time, and it was awesome. I just went. I didn't have anyone with me. There was no one to quote unquote take care of me. I had just gotten out of a fairly bad relationship at that time, and I was free of that situation. Mm. I was getting ready to enter a new job and make more money than I'd ever made. And it was just a really, really, great experience.
Wonderful. So, Kaye, we've reached the end of the interview. Tell us how we can reach you. Give us one parting piece of advice, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay. I'm not particularly famous. You can email me if you'd like at Kaye Zimpher Zimpher at Comcast.net. I do have a Facebook page, which is facebook.com/thekeeperoftime, all in one word. Okay. And my Skype information is just kaye.zimpher, Zimpher. So I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
Great. And one parting piece of advice?
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding. Tell someone that you love them every day and mean it.
Wow, that's definitely deep, because we never know what may happen. So you're not married, correct?
I am not.
Okay, because every time I have a female on the show, I always say Mrs., and they correct me after the interview, so I figured I would go ahead and get that out, because I know either you'll listen or you'll lose some potential boyfriends because of my era. So cool.
I'm not sure that I'm easy enough to get along with, but no, I am not. I'm not married.
Okay. Cool. Well, this has definitely been a very, very exciting interview, and I hope the listeners get a lot from it. Be independent, be empowered, don't give up. And so I'd like to thank Aaron Linson, our podcast producer and sound engineer, Kaye Zimpher, our guest, and bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
In my traditional closing, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you are right. Think pennies, get pennies. Think dollars, get dollars. See you on the other side.
This has been a Yuga Music Group production. Website 81x.com/Yuga/X. The Yuga Music Group can be reached at 678-608-8969. All rights reserved.